In part one of this series, I introduced the passages from Luke 17, where Jesus brings the days of Noah together with the days of Lot. As we learned in part one, the main problem with the inhabitants of Sodom and Gomorrah was not homosexuality or even unrighteousness, but the fact that they were filled with violence. Here's what Gemini returned when I asked for the definition of violence. Violence is the use of physical force to cause harm to people or non-human life. It can also include the use of threats, intimidation, or coercion to control or harm others. Violence can have many negative consequences, including physical and psychological injuries, death, and property damage. It can also create fear and trauma for victims and their communities. Oxford Languages defines violence as the unlawful exercise of physical force or intimidation by the exhibition of such force. Violence begins with the seed of anger. Oxford Languages defines anger as a strong feeling of annoyance, displeasure, or hostility. More often than not, anger arises due to our love for the self. And violence? It is the most extreme manifestation of this love for the self. Think about it. Why do we get annoyed or displeased or angry with others, even strangers that we hear about on television and social media? If you are paying any attention to the news at all, you cannot help but recognize that a lot of people are angry and getting angrier by the day. I don't say this as a matter of fear, but of observation. The bottom line is, are you angry too? Now, let's return to a particular passage from our story of Lot, where the men of Sodom are seeking to enter his home. "Get out of our way," they replied. And they said, "This fellow came here as an alien, and now he wants to play the judge. We'll treat you worse than them." They kept bringing pressure on Lot and moved forward to break down the door. No doubt, we see extreme anger and violence here. But why? One reason is that they thought Lot was playing the judge by condemning their actions. Sound familiar? It should, for this is happening all over our country and the world. Not behind closed doors, but in front of the whole world via television and social media. Everybody is blaming everybody. Be it known that the angrier one gets, the more reason goes out the door. And nothing stokes anger more than folks playing the judge. I've said it in other studies. Out of all the characteristics that could be mentioned regarding the great red dragon of Revelation 12, he is called the accuser. What did Paul say to Timothy about those who have a form of godliness but deny its power? Avoid such people. The NIV renders this, have nothing to do with them. Remember how the list starts in 2 Timothy 3? Lovers of self. This being the case, note what Jesus said in the context of the days of Lot. On that day, let the one who is on the housetop, with his goods in the house, not come down to take them away, and likewise let the one who is in the field not turn back. Remember Lot's wife? Whoever seeks to preserve his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life will keep it. When we compare what Jesus said here with what he said to his disciples in Matthew 16:24 through 26, we have a clear indication that he is, again, speaking of self-denial. In a conversation yesterday with a good friend of mine, he mentioned that it's one thing to understand that we must deny the self, but another thing entirely to do it. I agree, and I believe that's why Jesus said about life, "Few there be that find it." So what did Jesus mean about denying the self? What or who is this self? Didn't Jesus teach that we should love our neighbors as ourselves? He did. So why must we deny it? Because denying the self means to challenge any and everything in our hearts and minds that prevents us from loving our neighbor. For this reason, I define the problem as pride, and pride as the inordinate love of the self. Why are so many angry? Based on what Jesus said about Lot's wife, it's because they wish to preserve their lives. Friend, at its most basic level, our lives comes down to those things that exist between our ears. That is, our beliefs, both secular and religious. Those things we think are true. However, let me say this. Challenge what you think is true until you find the truth. And how will you know it's truth? Because it will make you free. No, not the kind of free that most everyone refers to in this country, but a real freedom from the anger that stirs in the hearts of so many in this day and time. So, think about this. The more time you spend considering others and their problems, the less time you spend considering your own. And let me tell you a secret. The more you criticize others, the unhappier you will be. Am I saying that we should beat ourselves over the head for falling short? No, not at all. But what I am saying is, don't follow after those who are angry, especially when they use that anger to accuse. Let the dead bury their dead. So let's come back to the idea of preserving our lives. What did the angels tell Lot and his family? Do not look back. What did Jesus say in Luke 17? On that day, let the one who was on the housetop, with his goods in the house, not come down to take them away, and likewise let the one who is in the field not turn back. Remember Lot's wife. Preserving our lives is the same as looking back. And don't look back is just another way of saying, don't live in the past. I do not doubt that this is one of the reasons Christendom is so stagnant. Living in the past is synonymous with not denying the self. Might this be why Paul called the self the old man? Friend, things change from generation to generation. Not only has technology opened doors we never thought possible, so too people's hearts and minds also affect change. Not all of it is good, but not all of it is bad either. That being said, let me share another secret with you. The self, or ego, doesn't like change. Once the self is securely seated as God in this temple, he doesn't like being disturbed. In contemporary terms, we call it routine. At this point, I will close, but be sure to join me in the next video study as we continue our look at the days of Lot.